The night young Woojin chose his date for his brother's wedding, he didn't pick a K-pop idol, a chaebol heiress, or the daughter of a politician. He walked into his private study and pointed at his assistant. Olivia Bennett froze behind her desk, the expense report still pulled up on her laptop screen. Young Woojin never made mistakes. He never hesitated, and he never changed his mind. The penthouse office was silent except for the hum of Seoul's nighttime traffic 40 floors below. It was nearly 11, and Olivia was finishing her nightly reports. She had built her entire life in Korea around being unnoticed, and tonight that mattered more than ever. Woojin stood in the doorway, still wearing the charcoal suit from a negotiation that had run past midnight. His tie was loosened, revealing the hollow of his throat, and his dark hair had lost its perfect styling. His eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Miss Bennett," he said, his accented English precise and controlled. Her fingers stilled over the keyboard. "Yes, sir." He studied her as if calculating a risk only he could see. "You will accompany me to my brother's wedding this Saturday." Her breath caught. She closed her laptop carefully, buying herself seconds to think. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding, Mr. Young. I'm just your assistant." Kim Dae-young, Woojin's head of security, was leaning against the doorframe behind him, arms crossed. Even he looked surprised, and nothing surprised Dae-young. Woojin stepped fully into the office, his footsteps deliberate on the marble floor. "There is no misunderstanding." Olivia's pulse hammered in her throat. "Why me?" His gaze swept over her slowly, analytically, the way he assessed contracts and competitors. "Every woman in Seoul who wants to stand beside me wants something from me. Money, status, access to power." She blinked, confused. "I don't understand what that has to do with." "You don't want anything from me," he interrupted. "You've worked for me for 8 months. You've never asked for a favor, never angled for advancement, never tried to get closer." His eyes narrowed. "You're the only person in this building who fears me for the right reasons." Before she could respond, an elegant older woman entered the study. Mrs. Young, Woojin's mother. She stopped when she saw them, her silk hanbok rustling. "Woojina," she said in Korean, her tone carefully neutral. "Please tell me you've selected an appropriate companion for your brother's wedding. The family cannot afford talk." He didn't look away from Olivia. "I have chosen her." Mrs. Young followed his gaze, saw Olivia, and her composure cracked for just a moment. "The American assistant," she said in English, her voice tight with disbelief. "You're taking your employee?" Dae-jung coughed quietly, hiding what might have been amusement. Olivia wanted to sink through the floor. Woojin's expression remained impassive. "Yes, Olivia Bennett will accompany me." "But she's staff," his mother insisted. "And the guests attending will be." "I don't care who they are." His tone ended the conversation like a blade. Mrs. Young pressed her lips together and left the study, her displeasure radiating in the silence she left behind. Olivia took a shaky breath. "Mr. Young, I really don't think this is appropriate." "I'm not." "Are you refusing?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. Her breath stopped. "Refusing the man who controlled half of Seoul's underground. Refusing the man who could make people disappear with a phone call." She forced herself to speak. "I'm not refusing. I just don't understand why you would want me there." He took one step closer to the desk. "You make people underestimate you. That is a weapon. And I need someone beside me who doesn't perform for cameras or feed information to rivals." Something sharp and unfamiliar twisted in her chest. No one had ever called her strategic. "I've never been to a wedding like yours," she said. "I don't know how to act around Korea's elite families. I don't even own the right kind of dress. That will be arranged." He cut her off. "You won't attend in office clothes." Dae-jung stepped forward. "Boss, are you certain?" "She'll be surrounded by press, politicians, business leaders. Chaebols. Your competitors. My decision is final." Olivia's stomach dropped. Being visible beside young Woojin could expose her. Being photographed could connect her to a past she'd buried when she fled to Korea 3 years ago. Why me Woojin? It was the first time she had ever used his given name. His eyes flickered with something she couldn't read. He leaned forward slightly, his hands flat on her desk, his voice low and controlled. Because every other woman sees a crown. You're the only one who sees the knife beneath it. She felt that sentence settle into her bones like truth. Daejung cleared his throat. Miss Bennett, you should rest. Tomorrow will be intensive. Stylists, fittings, briefings. Woojin straightened and turned away from her as if the matter was settled permanently. A car will collect you at 7 tomorrow morning. Be ready. He paused at the door. And Miss Bennett. She looked up quickly. When you walk into that ballroom on my arm, he said, his eyes sharp and uncompromising, you are under my protection. Everyone will understand that. Her breath came unsteady. Understood. He nodded once and left the study with Dae-young behind him. The moment the door closed, Olivia sank into her chair and pressed trembling fingers to her mouth. She pulled her purse from the desk drawer and reached into the hidden compartment. She withdrew a small photograph she kept folded inside her passport, a photo from another life, another country, another version of herself. She stared at it with wide, frightened eyes. If someone recognized her at that wedding, if someone remembered what had happened in Chicago, if anyone connected her to the Viper, the man she'd testified against before vanishing, everything could collapse. And young Woojin would learn exactly why his invisible assistant had been so desperate to stay unseen. Stop right there. I need to tell you something before we continue. You're about to watch this woman's entire life unravel. You're about to see a mafia boss choose love over empire. You're going to feel things that YouTube's algorithm doesn't want you to feel because stories this raw, this real, this emotionally devastating don't get recommended. They get buried. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't subscribe right now, you'll never see another story like this from me. You'll forget. You'll scroll away. And 3 months from now, when I post a story that absolutely destroys you in the best way possible, that story won't reach you. Because you were too lazy to tap a button. So prove me wrong. Hit subscribe. Show me you're not the person who takes emotional experiences and gives nothing back. 2 seconds. Do it now. Because Olivia is about to walk into that boutique, and what happens next will make your chest hurt. The boutique occupied the top floor of a building Olivia had walked past 100 times but never entered. The kind of place where prices weren't displayed and appointments were made months in advance. A sleek black Mercedes had collected her at 7 sharp, and now she stood in a private fitting room surrounded by floor-to-ceiling mirrors. 3 stylists moved around her like surgeons, speaking rapid Korean she only half understood. Arms up, please, one said in English, measuring her waist with practiced efficiency. Olivia complied, feeling exposed in nothing but undergarments while strangers catalogued every dimension of her body. The head stylist, a woman named Madame Choi, returned carrying a garment bag with the reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. She unzipped it slowly, and Olivia's breath caught. The gown was black silk, sleeveless, with a neckline that would expose her collarbones and shoulders in a way she had spent 3 years avoiding. It was elegant and dangerous, designed to be remembered. This will not work, Olivia said quietly. I need something more conservative. Something that doesn't. Mr. Young selected this personally, Madame Choi interrupted, her tone making clear that Woojin's preferences were not negotiable. They dressed her carefully, the silk sliding over her skin like water. The gown fit perfectly, hugging her frame before falling in a clean line to the floor. When they finally turned her toward the mirror, Olivia barely recognized herself. The woman reflected back looked powerful, sophisticated. Everything she had promised herself she would never be again. Beautiful, Madame Choi murmured with satisfaction. The fitting room door opened without warning. Woojin entered, still on his phone, speaking clipped Korean to someone about container shipments and port schedules. He barely glanced up as he crossed the threshold. Then he stopped mid-sentence. His eyes found her in the mirror, and something shifted in his expression. Not a smile. Young Wu Jin didn't smile, but a subtle change in the set of his jaw, the focus of his gaze. He lowered the phone slowly, the conversation forgotten. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, he simply looked at her. Olivia felt her face flush under his scrutiny. "Sir," the voice on his phone called faintly. Wu Jin raised the phone back to his ear without breaking eye contact. "I'll call you back." He ended the call. He walked toward her with measured steps, his expression unreadable again, but his eyes remained fixed on her with that same calculating intensity from the night before. He stopped directly behind her, their eyes meeting in the mirror. "This will do," he said quietly. Madame Choi beamed. The other stylists exchanged satisfied glances. But Olivia saw something else in his reflection, something almost like recognition, as if he was seeing past the gown and the styling to whatever he had suspected lay beneath her carefully maintained facade. "Turn around," he said. She obeyed slowly, facing him directly now. His gaze traveled from her face down to the gown and back up, professional yet thorough. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that only she could hear. "Saturday night. Every person in that ballroom will wonder who you are." His eyes locked with hers. "Let them wonder." Olivia's breath trembled. That was exactly what terrified her. The limousine slowed to a stop outside the Grand Hyatt, and Olivia's hands went cold. Through the tinted window, she could see the entrance bathed in golden light, a red carpet stretching toward massive doors flanked by security in black suits. Photographers lined both sides, their cameras already flashing at arriving guests. "I can't do this," she whispered. Wu Jin sat beside her, perfectly composed in his tailored black suit, white dress shirt crisp against his throat. He checked his watch with the same calm he brought to every negotiation. "You can," he said simply. "There are cameras. Press. They'll want to know who I am. Let them ask." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "You are with me. That is the only answer they need." The driver opened Wu Jin's door. Sound rushed in, voices, camera shutters, music from inside the ballroom. He stepped out smoothly, buttoning his jacket with one hand. Then he turned back and extended his hand to her. Olivia stared at it, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was her last chance to refuse, to claim illness, to disappear back into the safety of anonymity. His eyes held hers through the open door. Waiting. Not demanding, but making clear that her choice would define everything that followed. She took his hand. The moment her heel touched the red carpet, the cameras exploded. Flashes came from every direction, blinding and relentless. Voices called out in Korean, asking questions she couldn't process through her panic. Wu Jin's hand moved to the small of her back, steadying her, guiding her forward. "Walk," he murmured. "Don't stop." She forced her legs to move, keeping her eyes forward, her expression carefully neutral, the way she'd learned years ago in a different courthouse, in a different life. But this time she wasn't walking toward a witness stand. This time she was walking into Seoul's elite on the arm of its most dangerous man. The guests who had already arrived stood along the entrance, champagne glasses paused mid-sip, conversations dying as Wu Jin and Olivia passed. She felt their stares like physical pressure, shock, curiosity, calculation. An older man in an expensive suit leaned toward his companion. "Who is she?" A woman in diamonds whispered behind her hand. "I've never seen her before." Wu Jin's hand remained steady against her back, a subtle claim of ownership that everyone present would understand. He didn't acknowledge the whispers, didn't slow his stride. He walked with the confidence of someone who owned every room he entered. They reached the grand ballroom entrance. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, casting warm light over hundreds of guests in formal attire. A live orchestra played near a dance floor that seemed to stretch forever. Everything was elegant, expensive, designed to display wealth and power. Olivia felt herself shrinking instinctively, trying to make herself smaller. Wu Jin's fingers tightened slightly against her back. Not painful, but firm. A reminder. Head up, he said quietly. You're not invisible anymore. She lifted her chin, her posture straightening despite every instinct screaming at her to hide. They stepped through the doors together. The room didn't fall silent. It was too large for that, but a visible ripple moved through the crowd. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Eyes tracked their movement across the threshold. Wu Jin's younger brother, young Minho, approached with his bride-to-be, both smiling with practiced warmth. But even Minho's eyes widened slightly when he saw Olivia. Young, he said, using the honorific for older brother. His gaze flickered to Olivia with barely concealed surprise. You came. Did you doubt it? Wu Jin's tone was light but carried an edge. Minho recovered quickly, extending his hand to Olivia. I'm Minho. And you are? Wu Jin answered before she could. She's with me. The weight of that statement settled over the group. Not her name. Not her position. Just that simple, absolute claim. Minho's smile faltered for just a second before he nodded, understanding passing between the brothers in a language Olivia couldn't quite read. Of course, Minho said. Welcome. Wu Jin guided her deeper into the ballroom, his hand never leaving her back, keeping her close as they navigated through Seoul's most powerful families. The orchestra shifted into a waltz and couples began moving toward the dance floor. Olivia felt Wu Jin's hand slide from her back to her waist, turning her gently to face him. I don't know how to waltz, she said quickly. Then follow. He took her right hand in his left, his other hand settling firmly at her waist, and guided her onto the floor before she could protest further. The chandelier light caught the edges of his face as he began to lead, his movements precise and controlled. Olivia stumbled slightly on the first turn, but his grip steadied her, pulling her closer. Relax, he murmured. You're thinking too much. I'm surrounded by people who could destroy me with a phone call, she whispered back. Thinking seems appropriate. His eyes held hers. They can't touch you. Because you say so? Because I'll destroy them first. The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, something warm and dangerous unfurled in her chest. She let herself follow his lead, her body finding the rhythm, her hand tightening slightly in his. They moved together beneath the crystal chandeliers, and Olivia became aware of how close they were. Close enough to feel the heat of his body through his suit. Close enough to see the faint scar near his left temple she'd never noticed before. Close enough that when he looked at her, everything else blurred into background noise. You're doing well, he said quietly. I'm terrified. I know. His thumb brushed against her waist, barely perceptible. You hide it better than you think. The music swelled, and he turned her smoothly, her gown flowing with the movement. For a moment, just a moment, Olivia let herself forget why she was here. Let herself feel the strength of his hand, the assurance of his presence, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Then her gaze drifted over his shoulder, scanning the crowd out of habit, out of 3 years of paranoia that had kept her alive. And she saw him. A man standing near the bar, watching her with an intensity that made her blood turn to ice. Tall, Western, wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite hide the bulk of his shoulders. He held a glass of whiskey but wasn't drinking it. Just watching. His left hand rested against the bar, and even from this distance, even through the crowd, Olivia could see it. The tattoo. A serpent coiled around a dagger, running from his wrist to his knuckles. She had seen that exact design before, burned into her memory from the night she'd testified. The Viper's signature. His inner circle all wore it. A mark of loyalty, of blood, of belonging to an organization she had helped dismantle. The room tilted. Olivia. Wu Jin's voice cut through her spiraling panic. His hand tightened at her waist. What's wrong? She tried to keep dancing, tried to keep her expression neutral, but her body had locked up. Her hand trembled in his. Olivia. Sharper now. Look at me. She forced her eyes back to his face, her breath coming too fast. There's a man, she whispered. By the bar. Western, dark suit. He has a tattoo. Wu Jin's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. He turned them smoothly, as if adjusting their position in the dance, giving himself a clear view of the bar. The tall one, she breathed. Left hand. He's watching me. Wu Jin found him immediately. For 3 seconds, he studied the man with the cold calculation of a predator assessing prey. Then he pulled Olivia closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Do you know him? No, but I know what that tattoo means. Her voice cracked. He's one of them. From Chicago. From before. The music continued, beautiful and oblivious. Around them, couples danced and laughed and celebrated, unaware that Olivia's carefully constructed anonymity had just shattered. Wu Jin's joy tightened. We're leaving. If we leave now, he'll know I recognized him. He already knows. Wu Jin's hand moved from her waist to her hand, gripping it firmly. And now he knows you're mine. He led her off the dance floor with the same commanding presence that had brought them in, his body angled protectively between her and the man at the bar. The moment the limousine door closed behind them, Olivia's composure shattered. Her hands shook violently as she tried to smooth down her gown, a useless gesture that did nothing to calm the panic flooding her system. Drive, Wu Jin ordered the driver in Korean. Don't stop until I tell you. The car pulled away from the Grand Hyatt, the golden lights and crowd fading into the Seoul night. But Olivia could still see that tattoo burned into her vision. Still feel those eyes tracking her across the ballroom. He recognized me, she whispered. He knows I'm here. Wu Jin sat beside her, his posture controlled, but she could see the tension in his jaw. Who is he? I don't know his name. I don't know any of their names except, her voice broke. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the room from spinning. Olivia. Wu Jin's hand found her wrist, pulling her hands away from her face gently but firmly. Look at me. She did, and the concern in his eyes nearly undid her completely. Tell me everything, he said. Now. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. 3 years ago, I testified against a man named Marcus Volkov. In Chicago. They called him the Viper. She took a shuddering breath. He ran one of the largest trafficking and extortion operations in the Midwest. I was just a paralegal at the firm handling one of his legitimate businesses. I found documents, evidence, things he'd hidden in shell corporations and offshore accounts. Wu Jin listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. I went to the FBI, she continued, her voice hollow. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought they could protect me. A bitter laugh escaped her throat. The trial lasted 6 weeks. My testimony put him away for 25 years. But his organization didn't disappear. His second-in-command, his enforcers, his network, they're all still out there. And they want you dead. They want me erased. She met his eyes. 2 witnesses from that trial are already gone. The FBI offered me witness protection, but I didn't trust them. So I ran. I used every dollar I had to disappear. I came to Korea because it was far enough away, different enough, anonymous enough. Her voice cracked. I thought I was safe. Wu Jin's thumb moved slowly across her wrist, the only indication that he was processing what she'd just confessed. The man at the wedding. He's one of them. That tattoo, the serpent and dagger, everyone in Volkov's inner circle has it. It's their mark. She pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself. If he's here in Seoul, if he's at your brother's wedding, it means Volkov's network has international reach. It means they found me. The limousine glided through empty streets, the city lights blurring past. Why didn't you tell me? Wu Jin asked quietly. Because men like you don't hire fugitives. Because I needed the job. Because she stopped, her throat tight. Because if you knew, you would have sent me away. And I had nowhere else to go. Silence filled the car, heavy and suffocating. Olivia stared at her hands, waiting for him to order the driver to take her to the airport, to tell her she was fired, to remind her that associating with her put his entire operation at risk. Instead, he reached for his phone and made a call. "Dae-young," he said in Korean. "I need full background on a Western male, approximately 40 years old, dark suit, serpent tattoo on his left hand. He was at the wedding tonight. I want his name, his hotel, his contacts in Seoul, and who invited him." He paused. "You have 2 hours." He ended the call and turned back to Olivia. "You should have told me sooner," he said, his voice cold and controlled. "But you're right. I wouldn't have hired you." His eyes locked with hers. "I also wouldn't have let you face this alone." Olivia felt something break open in her chest. "Woo Jin, you can't get involved in this. These people are in my city." His tone left no room for argument. "Threatening someone under my protection. I'm just your assistant." "No." He leaned forward, his gaze intense and unwavering. "You stopped being just my assistant the moment I chose you. And I don't surrender what's mine. Can we just pause for a second? Because if your throat is tight right now, if you're feeling that specific ache that comes from watching someone finally be chosen after years of hiding, then you understand exactly why I spend weeks researching these stories. This isn't entertainment. This is emotional archaeology. Digging up the moments that remind us what it means to be human. To be terrified. To be seen anyway. And here's what kills me. Stories like this are dying. The algorithm wants you numb. Wants you scrolling through 30-second dopamine hits instead of sitting with real emotion for 40 minutes. So if you value content that doesn't insult your intelligence or numb your soul, if you want more stories about people who choose love even when it costs them everything, hit subscribe. Because Viktor Kozlov is about to make his move, and you need to see what happens when a man keeps his promises. Don't rob yourself of that ending by forgetting this channel exists. The VIP room at the Shilla Hotel was designed for discretion. Soundproof walls, no windows, a single entrance monitored by security that answered only to whoever paid them more. Tonight, that was young Woo Jin. He sat at the head of the table, Dae-young standing behind him like a shadow, while across from them sat the man from the wedding. Up close, he was older than Woo Jin had estimated. Mid-40s, with cold gray eyes and the kind of stillness that came from years of violence. "Mr. Young," the man said in accented English, his voice smooth. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "You requested this meeting," Woo Jin replied, his tone flat. "I'm simply curious what brings one of Marcus Volkov's associates to Seoul." The man smiled, unbothered by the directness. "You've done your homework." "Impressive. Then again, I expected nothing less from someone of your reputation." He leaned back in his chair. "My name is Viktor Kozlov. And I'm here on business." "What kind of business?" "The kind that involves a woman you brought to your brother's wedding." Viktor's smile widened. "Olivia Bennett. Though that's not her real name, is it?" "We knew her as Sarah Mitchell in Chicago." Woo Jin's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened imperceptibly against the table. "I don't discuss my personal affairs." "This isn't personal, Mr. Young. This is business." Viktor pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a photograph of Olivia, younger, different hair, testifying in a courtroom. "She cost my organization $40 million and 25 years of leadership. She destroyed carefully built networks across 3 states. Men died because of her testimony. Men died because they broke the law." Semantics. Viktor retrieved his phone. "The point is, she has a debt to pay. And I've been authorized to collect it." Dae-young shifted slightly behind Woo Jin, his hand moving closer to his concealed weapon. "What do you want?" Woo Jin asked. "Simple. You hand over Miss Bennett, and this unfortunate situation disappears. No one needs to know she was ever here. No one needs to know you were harboring a fugitive from American justice." Viktor paused. "We leave Seoul, you continue your operations undisturbed, and everyone wins. Except Olivia. She made her choice 3 years ago. Victor's eyes hardened. Actions have consequences, Mr. Young. Surely you understand that better than most. Wu Jin studied the man across from him with the same cold calculation he brought to every negotiation. And if I refuse? Victor's smile faded. Then I make a few phone calls. Your business partners in Los Angeles, your shipping contacts in Vancouver, your investment connections in New York, they all learn that young Wu Jin is protecting a federal witness who destroyed a major criminal organization. They start wondering what else you might be willing to tell authorities. He leaned forward. Your international operations collapse within a month. Your reputation as someone trustworthy, someone who respects the old codes, gone. You're threatening to destroy my alliances. I'm offering you a choice. One woman, Mr. Young. One woman who means nothing to you in exchange for everything you've built. Victor spread his hands. It's a simple business decision. The room fell silent except for the barely audible hum of air conditioning. Wu Jin stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket with careful precision. Dae-young straightened, ready. Mr. Kozlov, Wu Jin said quietly, I appreciate you being direct. So, let me return the courtesy. He placed both hands flat on the table, leaning forward until he was level with Victor's eyes. Olivia Bennett is under my protection. That protection is absolute and non-negotiable. If you or anyone in your organization comes near her, I will dismantle everything Marcus Volkov built, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but a memory. Victor's expression hardened. You're choosing war over one woman? I'm choosing my word over your threats. Wu Jin straightened. You have 24 hours to leave Korea. If you're still here after that, what happens next is on you. He turned and walked toward the door, Dae-young following. Mr. Young, Victor called out, his voice sharp with warning. You're making a mistake. Wu Jin paused at the threshold without turning back. No. You made the mistake when you came to my city and demanded I betray someone I claimed. The door closed behind them with quiet finality. Olivia was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of Wu Jin's penthouse when he returned, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline without seeing it. She'd changed out of the black gown into simple clothes, jeans and a sweater, as if shedding the evening could somehow erase what had happened. She turned when she heard the door open, her face pale in the dim lighting. What did he want? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Wu Jin shrugged off his jacket and draped it over the back of a chair, his movements deliberate and controlled. You. She closed her eyes. I knew it. I knew this would happen. She wrapped her arms around herself. What did you tell him? No. The single word hung in the air between them. Olivia's eyes snapped open. What? I told him no. Wu Jin walked toward her, loosening his tie. I gave him 24 hours to leave Korea. You. She stared at him, incomprehension flooding her features. Wu Jin, you don't understand what you've just done. Victor Kozlov isn't just some enforcer. He has resources, connections, an entire organization behind him. He'll destroy your international operations. He'll turn your partners against you. I know exactly what he'll try to do. Wu Jin stopped in front of her, his expression calm. And I don't care. You should care. Her voice rose, panic bleeding through. I'm not worth a war. I'm not worth losing everything you've built. That's not your decision to make. Then you're being irrational. She turned back to the window, her hands pressing against the glass. Just give me a few hours. I'll disappear. I've done it before. I can go to Thailand or Japan or somewhere they'll never find me. You can tell Victor I ran, that you had no control over it. Olivia. His hand caught her wrist, turning her back to face him. Stop. I can't let you do this. Tears were forming in her eyes now, and she hated herself for it. I can't let you sacrifice everything for me. You barely know me. You're under my protection. His voice was quiet, but absolute. Do you understand what that means? She shook her head, the tears spilling over. It means I chose you, he continued, his grip on her wrist firm but gentle. Not just for a wedding. Not just for show. When I walked into that study and pointed at you, when I put you in that gown, when I brought you into that ballroom, I made a claim. And everyone in Seoul's underworld knows that young Woo Jin doesn't break his word. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then. His other hand came up to her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. My reputation isn't built on fear alone. It's built on loyalty. On keeping my promises. On protecting what's mine. His eyes locked with hers. If I hand you over to save my business interests, I lose something far more valuable than international partnerships. I lose myself. Olivia's breath came in shaky gasps. They'll come for both of us now. Let them. He released her wrist, but didn't step back. I've been preparing for war my entire life. Viktor Kozlov made a mistake thinking I'd choose profit over principle. This isn't principle. This is suicide. No. His voice dropped lower, intimate. This is me telling you that you're not alone anymore. You've been running for 3 years, hiding, terrified of being seen. But you're not invisible to me, Olivia. You never were. She stared up at him, something breaking open in her chest. Why are you doing this? He was quiet for a long moment, his hand still against her face. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because when I look at you, I don't see a liability. I see someone who stood up to power when it would have been easier to stay silent. Someone who sacrificed everything for what was right. He paused. I see someone worth protecting. Olivia felt the last of her defenses crumble. She leaned forward, her forehead resting against his chest, and he pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her with surprising gentleness. He gave you 24 hours, she whispered against his shirt. Then we have 24 hours to prepare. His hand moved slowly through her hair. But, Olivia, understand this, I'm not giving you back. Not to Viktor. Not to Volkov's organization. Not to anyone. She closed her eyes, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. You're declaring war for me. I'm declaring war for us. The call came at 4 in the morning. Woo Jin's phone vibrated on the nightstand, pulling him from the light sleep he'd allowed himself while Olivia rested in the guest room down the hall. He answered before the second ring. Boss. Daejung's voice was tight with controlled anger. They hit the Gangnam Club. Woo Jin was already moving, pulling on clothes in the darkness. Casualties. 3 of our men injured. 1 critical. They used incendiaries, started a fire in the VIP section. Fire department's there now, but the damage is extensive. Witnesses. Security footage shows 4 men. Western. They knew exactly where the cameras were, knew the exit routes. Dae-young paused. This was professional, boss. They're sending a message. I received it. Woo Jin's voice was ice. Get Minsuk to secure all other properties. Double security at the shipping office and the Itaewon warehouse. I want armed presence at every location. Already done. What about Miss Bennett? Woo Jin glanced toward the hallway, where Olivia's door remained closed. She stays here. You'll assign 2 men outside the penthouse. No one gets up without my authorization. Understood. Boss. Viktor left a note at the club. Daejung's tone darkened. It says, 16 hours remain. Next time, people die. Woo Jin's jaw tightened. He ended the call and stood in the center of his bedroom, watching the first hints of dawn break over Seoul's skyline. They'd struck fast, struck hard, exactly as he'd expected. Viktor was proving he had the capability to reach into Woo Jin's empire and damage it. But capability and success were different things. A soft knock came at his door. Olivia stood in the hallway, wearing one of his shirts over her jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her eyes were wide with fear. I heard your phone, she said. What happened? They attacked one of my clubs. Set fire to it. Her face went pale. Were people hurt? 3 men. 1 is in surgery now. He watched her process the information, watched guilt flood her features. This is because of me. Her voice broke. Your people are getting hurt because you won't. This is because Viktor Kozlov thought he could intimidate me. Wu Jin crossed to her, his expression hard. He made a tactical error. He showed me he's willing to escalate, which means he's desperate. Desperate men are dangerous. So am I. He moved past her toward his study. I've spent the last 6 hours playing defense, protecting what's mine, waiting to see what they'd do. That ends now. Olivia followed him. What are you going to do? Wu Jin's study was lined with monitors showing feeds from various properties across Seoul. He pulled up a different screen, encrypted files, financial records, surveillance photos. Information he'd been gathering since Daejung identified Viktor 12 hours ago. Viktor thinks this is about you, Wu Jin said, his fingers moving across the keyboard. But men like him don't come to foreign territory without reason. He's not just here to collect a debt. He's here because Volkov's organization is expanding into Asia, and Seoul is their entry point. He pulled up a series of transactions. 3 shell companies registered in the last 6 months. All linked to Russian interests. All investing in Seoul's port operations and nightlife districts. He turned to face her. Viktor isn't working alone. He has local partners, corrupt officials, people helping him build infrastructure. Olivia stared at the screen. You think he's using me as leverage for something bigger? I know he is. Handing you over gives him credibility. Proves he can control me. Makes his partners think he's powerful enough to dictate terms to young Wu Jin. His eyes were cold, calculating. But he made a mistake when he burned my club. He showed me his network, his resources, his vulnerabilities. What are you planning? Wu Jin picked up his phone and made a call. When Daejung answered, his instructions were clear and precise. Gather the team. Full offensive capability. We move tonight. He ended the call and looked at Olivia. Viktor wanted to prove he's serious. Now I'm going to show him what serious actually means. Wu Jin, if this goes wrong, it won't. His voice carried absolute certainty. I've been building power in this city for 10 years. Viktor's been here for 6 months. He's a guest in my house, and he just broke the furniture. He moved closer to her. I'm done playing defense. Tonight, we end this. The shipping yard was dark except for scattered floodlights casting long shadows across stacked containers. The Han River moved silently beyond the docks, reflecting the distant lights of the city. Wu Jin stood near the water's edge, hands in his pockets, perfectly still. Daejung and 5 other men positioned themselves in the shadows behind him, invisible but ready. Viktor arrived precisely on time, bringing 4 men of his own. They emerged from between containers, confident in their numbers, their footsteps echoing on the concrete. Mr. Young, Viktor called out, stopping 20 feet away. I'm surprised you called this meeting. I thought my message at your club was clear enough. It was clear. Wu Jin's voice carried across the empty space. You're willing to hurt innocent people to make a point. Congratulations. You've proven you're capable of arson. Viktor's smile was cold. I'm capable of much more. Your deadline expires in 4 hours. I assume you're here to discuss terms. No. Wu Jin withdrew his hands from his pockets, holding a tablet. I'm here to show you why you should have left Seoul when I told you to. He tapped the screen and Viktor's phone buzzed. Then the phones of all 4 men with him. Viktor pulled out his phone, his expression shifting from confidence to confusion as he read. What is this? That, Wu Jin said calmly, is every financial transaction your organization has made in Seoul for the past 6 months. Shell companies, bribed officials, money laundering routes through 3 different banks. He took a step forward. I also have recordings of your meetings with Deputy Minister Choi and Senator Park. Very interesting conversations about port access and customs exemptions. Viktor's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. Wu Jin tapped the tablet again. Viktor's phone lit up with a video file. Viktor himself, sitting in a luxury restaurant, discussing shipment schedules and payoffs with a Korean official wearing an expensive suit. That was taken 4 days ago at the Signal, Wu Jin continued. The audio quality is excellent. Would you like me to continue? The men behind Victor shifted uneasily, their hands moving toward concealed weapons. De Jong and his team emerged from the shadows, guns drawn but lowered, a silent reminder of numerical disadvantage. "You've been watching us," Victor said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "From the moment De Jong identified you." Wu Jin's expression remained cold. "Did you really think you could operate in my city without me knowing? You're not the first foreign organization to try expanding into Seoul. But you're definitely the sloppiest." He held up the tablet. "Right now, this information is encrypted on a server only I can access. If anything happens to me, if anything happens to Olivia Bennett, if you or anyone in your organization remains in Korea past sunrise, these files automatically distribute to every law enforcement agency in South Korea, Interpol, and the FBI." Victor's face darkened. "You're threatening to expose us. I'm promising to destroy you." Wu Jin's voice dropped, lethal and precise. "Your infrastructure here collapses. Your partners get arrested. Your money gets frozen. And Volkov's organization learns that you failed because you underestimated a local operator." He paused. "How do you think they handle failure, Victor?" The silence stretched between them, heavy with threat. Victor's hand twitched toward his jacket, but one of his own men caught his wrist, shaking his head slightly. The man had clearly done the math. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and caught. "This is extortion," Victor said. "This is business." Wu Jin stepped closer, close enough that only Victor could hear his next words. "You came to my city demanding I betray someone under my protection. You burned my property and hurt my people. You threatened war." His eyes were ice. "Now you understand what war with young Wu Jin actually looks like." Victor's jaw clenched, rage and calculation warring across his features. "You have until sunrise," Wu Jin continued, his voice carrying again. "Every hour you remain in Korea, I release one file. By noon, your entire operation is exposed." He turned away, dismissing Victor entirely. "Leave. Now. And tell Marcus Volkov that if he sends anyone else after Olivia Bennett, I won't stop at files. I'll come for him personally." He walked back toward De Jong, his back deliberately exposed to Victor, an ultimate display of contempt and power. Behind him, he heard Victor spit something in Russian, then the sound of footsteps retreating toward the containers. De Jong appeared at his side. "He's leaving. Men are tracking him to ensure he goes straight to the airport." Wu Jin nodded, his expression unreadable. "It's over. For now." "For now," Wu Jin agreed. He looked back at the river, at the city beyond. "Take me home. You just watched a mafia boss choose one woman over his entire empire. You watched him weaponize loyalty, leverage, and love to destroy a Russian crime syndicate. You've been sitting here for 40 minutes, feeling things you probably haven't felt in weeks. And now I'm going to ask for something in return. 2 seconds of your life. Hit subscribe. Because here's the brutal truth. If you take this story, feel everything it made you feel, learn that love is a choice you make even when it's dangerous, and then you leave without doing that one microscopic thing, you're a thief. You're stealing emotional experiences without paying the only currency that matters, support. Don't be that person. Be someone who recognizes when something moves them and actually does something about it. Subscribe. Like. Comment. Be the reason the next person gets to feel what you just felt. There's one more chapter. Let's see if they choose each other. Dawn was breaking over Seoul when Wu Jin returned to the penthouse. Olivia was standing by the windows again, still wearing his shirt, watching the city wake up. She turned when she heard him enter, her eyes searching his face for answers. "It's done," he said simply. Her shoulders sagged with relief, but tension remained in every line of her body. "Victor, on a plane to Moscow by now. He won't be back." Wu Jin removed his jacket, the exhaustion of the last 24 hours finally showing in the set of his shoulders. "I gave him no choice." Olivia crossed to him, her hands reaching for his as if to confirm he was really there, really safe. "What happens now?" "Now." He looked down at their joined hands. Now we decide what comes next. She pulled her hands back, wrapping her arms around herself. I should probably start looking for a new job. Find a new place to disappear. Maybe Tokyo or Olivia. His voice stopped her. Do you want to leave? The question hung between them, weighted with everything unsaid. I don't know what I want, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 days ago, I was your assistant. I filed your reports, managed your schedule, stayed invisible. Now I'm the reason you almost lost your international network. The reason your club burned. The reason you had to threaten a Russian crime syndicate. She looked up at him. I don't know where I fit in your life anymore. Wu Jin moved closer, closing the distance between them. You were never just my assistant. Then what was I? The first person in 10 years who didn't want something from me. His hand came up to her face, gentle against her cheek. The first person who saw past the power and the reputation to the man underneath. The first person I chose for myself, not for strategy or alliance or advantage. Olivia's breath caught. Wu Jin. When I walked into that study and pointed at you, he continued, his voice low and steady, I told myself it was practical. You wouldn't embarrass me, wouldn't scheme, wouldn't use the opportunity for personal gain. His thumb traced her cheekbone. But that wasn't why I chose you. I chose you because for 8 months, you were the only thing in my life that felt real. Tears formed in her eyes. I'm still running from my past. That doesn't just disappear because Victor left Korea. Volkov is still in prison, but his organization still exists. There could be others. Then we'll handle them. He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. Together. You can't promise that. I just won a war for you, Olivia. I'm not letting you disappear now. His other hand found her waist, pulling her closer. I'm asking you to stay. Not as my assistant. Not as someone hiding in the background. His eyes locked with hers. As the woman standing beside me. She stared up at him, her heart hammering. Your world is dangerous. I know. People will talk. They'll question why you chose someone like me. Let them question. His voice was firm. I don't explain my decisions. I make them and I live with them. And if more people from my past come looking, then they'll learn what Victor learned. His grip on her waist tightened slightly. That you're protected. That you're mine. And that anyone who threatens you threatens me. Olivia felt something shift inside her chest, a wall she'd built 3 years ago finally crumbling. I don't know how to be anything other than invisible. Then I'll teach you. He leaned his forehead against hers, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Stay with me, Olivia. Not because you're running. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you want to. She closed her eyes, breathing him in expensive cologne mixed with the faint smell of the river and night air. When she opened them again, she saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Hope. Need. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stay. She reached up, her hand covering his where it rested against her face. Not as your assistant. As she hesitated, the word both terrifying and thrilling. As yours. Something shifted in his expression, relief and possession, and something deeper all at once. He pulled her fully against him, and this time when his lips met hers, it wasn't gentle or tentative. It was a claim, a promise, a declaration that everything had changed between them. When they finally pulled apart, the sun had fully risen over Seoul, casting golden light across the penthouse. Olivia looked up at the man who had chosen her, protected her, fought for her. The man who had seen past her carefully constructed invisibility to the woman underneath. What happens now? She asked again, but this time her voice was steady. Wu Jin's answer was simple. Now we live.